What are the up and coming areas around the Raleigh-Durham area? Today we're going to be hitting on where we think is going to be seeing the most growth in the next 10 years, so stick around.
All right, so kicking it off with East Durham. So we think East Durham is going to see significant changes over the next decade. And we're specifically talking about zip code 27703 and 27704. So those two zip codes account for about 60% of all the new construction that took place in 2024, which is absolutely wild. 60% of the new construction took place in Durham, I should specify. But those areas, those two zip codes are changing significantly and very quickly. I know we said the next decade, but I mean, you drive through there and the neighborhoods that are being cleared out, that they haven't even started selling yet. They're just clearing the land. I mean, it is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just one after another, after another, after another. And it's like, yeah, it's crazy to drive through and see just like how much it's changing in that general area. If you're not super familiar with those zip codes, 27703 is going to kind of butt up to like the Briar Creek area. So you're kind of on that like border of Wake and Durham County, and 04 is going to be slightly north of that. So those two general areas are just seeing so much growth, and it makes sense because that's where there's a lot more room to kind of expand in the Durham area. But it is really cool to see it in Durham. Those prices for what has been new in 2024 were on the lower side, which is nice. And these do include townhomes, but yeah, we're looking at like 412,000 on average. So really nice to have that like affordability being opened up. And when you're close to Briar Creek, like you have so much easy highway access and airport access. It's a very convenient spot to live. Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of East Durham, because a lot of the areas we're going to talk about today are going to feel somewhat remote, but the beauty of East Durham is it's going to feel very central compared to a lot of those other areas. Close access to Raleigh, close access to the airport, so very centralized location that we're going to see a ton of growth in over the next 10 years. Yeah, let's get a Trader Joe's out there. So if anybody from Trader Joe's that works for Trader Joe's is listening, give us a Briar Creek Trader Joe's. Like, that would be nice. So much traffic through there. It's got to be like the busiest part of the entire triangle, that like corridor around Briar Creek. Like a Trader Joe's would thrive. It would be nice. All right, next up is the South Raleigh region. So within this, we're talking about several areas. We're going to talk about South Raleigh, obviously. We're going to talk about Clayton, and we're going to talk about Garner. So these regions in general are going to explode in the next decade, really for two reasons. One, there's a lot of land left to develop. And two, you have the completion of the 540 loop on the southern side. So that's still in the works. You have the majority of it that's completed on the southern side. But then you have roughly, I think, an 18-mile stretch, I think is what's left between Clayton and Nightdale that'll be completed, I think, in 2028. But in general... Maybe. We'll see. It feels like it's taken my lifetime. Yes, Cindy's never positive about road development and how quick it is, which is probably a reasonable thing. I feel like I've been driving through this construction zone my entire life. I'm like, is this ever going to be done? But in general, those two things, lots of land to develop, and then you have the completion of, or the partial completion of the 540 loop on the southern side. And when you think of North Raleigh, how developed North Raleigh is, a lot of that is because of the infrastructure that's there. And on the southern side, they're laying the infrastructure, and you have land to develop, and so that's what's going to happen over the next 10 years. Yeah, it's going to be cool to see how things like change over time in that part of town for sure, and you just do have a lot of new construction out that way. Like Garner especially is a very heavy new construction region, and a very affordable region too, with like really easy access into Raleigh. Clayton as well, tons of new construction in that area in the last 10 years. I can't imagine seeing it change even more in 10 more years, because it has like totally changed in the last 10 years. So seeing it be even easier to get from Clayton to Raleigh, it's just going to continue to increase in value and have so much more out there. So it'll be cool to see a little more. I think we need on the like commercial side, like in some of those regions of South Raleigh and Clayton. Garner actually has a good amount of commercial, but it'll be good to see what continues to come after that 540 completion on the commercial side. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so next on our list is Wendell. Wendell is an awesome little town, and if you've watched many of our videos, you've probably heard us highlight it quite a bit. We like Wendell a lot. It's a really nice area, but this area in general has had almost the same amount of permits pulled in the first 6 months of 2024 as Raleigh, which is way larger in
Yeah.
population size. So it's just crazy
crazy
to see how many permits have been pulled. Raleigh had like 850 permits pulled from January to June, and Wendell had 710. So
Yeah,
it's like
it's crazy.
almost, yeah, it's crazy. I don't want to call it neck and neck, but very close, especially for a town with the population the size that it is. And even in just the last 10 years, I believe the population in Wendell has already doubled just from the past 10 years that we're in. So to see it kind of coming in the future in 10 more years, what it could be is going to be really insane. And a lot of that kind of started with Wendell Falls, which is a huge development in Wendell that's been kind of being built over the last decade or so. But I think it's kind of starting to come to almost completion, sort of, in Wendell Falls. But now you have a ton more just like kind of piggybacking off the success of Wendell Falls that is really growing in the area. This year, only about 25% of the new construction in Wendell was in Wendell Falls. So we're seeing a ton more of new construction neighborhoods out there and a lot more permits being pulled in that area for more.
And that's something that wasn't the case several years ago. Typically Wendell Falls was and I mean 25% is still a hefty amount for one neighborhood, but at the end of the day 75% of the new construction going on in Wendell is not Wendell Falls, and that just tells you the amount of growth that's occurring there. And you could probably lump a place like Zebulon into this, but I think Wendell Falls, or just Wendell in general, is going to see substantial growth, that entire eastern region, in the next 10 years.
For sure. By the way, if you are looking to make a move in the Triangle, we would love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can find our contact info below. And while you're at it, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and drop a comment below.
All right, next up on the list, and really the only one out of all these that we've talked about that wouldn't make an affordable list.
Right.
But the one I'm most excited to talk about is Pittsboro. So Pittsboro, I think, is set up for just tremendous growth over the next decade, 2 decades. Really, I mean, just it's going to change significantly over the next several years. So an interesting, I was reading an article in the Triangle Business Journal about the growth of Pittsboro. And just so you know, if you don't know where Pittsboro is, it's directly south of Chapel Hill. But it sits in a county called Chatham County. And in this Triangle Business Journal article, the projected population increase over the next 20 years, so currently in Chatham County is 80,000, the projected population in Chatham County in 20 years is 300,000. So you're going to go from 80,000 to 300,000 people.
Crazy.
And it's the size of Durham. That's bigger than the city of Durham right now. It's just, I mean, it's literally, it's mind blowing. But that is essentially where folks foresee the Chatham County, Pittsboro region going in the next several decades. A lot of this is being driven by this massive development called Chatham Park. It's going to be about 20,000 homes. So if you've heard of Chatham Park, you might have heard of the Disney neighborhood that's going within Chatham Park. It's going to be about the size of the Wendell Falls neighborhood we just talked about.
So big, and it's mind-blowing.
Yes.
Just one component of Chatham Park is going to be the size of.
But it's 20,000 homes. It's 20,000. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. And so Pittsboro in the next decade, 2 decades, is just going to be a completely different area than what it is today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, right now, I grew up in this area, and to think of, Pittsboro is kind of, it was always something that a lot of people, you maybe heard about it, but you probably had never been there before. Like, there was not a ton there. It does have a very cute little downtown, but it was mostly a very rural area, and that is really about to change. It'll be really interesting if they're projecting that large of a population increase to see how kind of urbanized Pittsboro might become. And obviously that has pros and cons for the people who have been there for generations to see such change. But it'll be really interesting to watch the growth of all of these additional developments outside of just Chatham Park.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously all of these changes that are coming in the next decade or even further out, 2 decades, 3 decades, I think are really good for the community. However, there's obviously strains that come with that. I mean, currently in Chatham County, they have issues with the water and sewer capacity not being able to keep up with the development, really stunting some of that growth. I think in East Durham, where they're building some of these neighborhoods, I mean, some of these neighborhoods are off of these little 2-lane roads that just aren't going to be able to support the amount of people that are going to be driving on them. There's going to be a lot of infrastructure constraints on that. So obviously this is not without its challenges that come with that. But I think in general, growth is a good thing. It comes with challenges, but so does decline. And if I had to pick, I would pick challenges with growth and not challenges with decline. So I think in general, these are good things coming to the community, but it's going to, I mean, for these areas, it's going to be a lot of change over the next decade or two.
Yeah, for sure, which is hard when you've been living in a town for so long. It is weird. Like I grew up in Durham, so like driving past things that were always just trees is like, it always kind of pulls at you because you have these memories of what it should look like.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then things change and you kind of get used to it and then you move on, you know, but it is kind of hard in the moment. Like Zach mentioned, like nobody wants to deal with construction and nobody wants to deal with backed up 2-lane roads. So hopefully these cities and towns are going to have a plan and not just throw stuff up so quickly that there's not a plan of how are these people going to get in and out of the neighborhood and back on the main road without causing like massive traffic delay. Yeah.
There's a neighborhood that we drive by that's close to our house that used to be trees and was trees for like all of Cindy's life, and they just clear cut it for a neighborhood. And every time we drive by, Cindy makes a comment about it.
Yeah.
A negative comment, to be clear, not a positive comment. But
so I feel you guys.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. But we are Zach and Cindy Honeycutt. We are a couple real estate agents here in the area. So if you are looking to buy or sell, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can find our contact info below, and you can also find us on Instagram.
Yep, we'd love to have you follow along on Instagram. You can also reach out to us in our DMs there at the Honeycutt Realtors, or you can reach us at the RDU Buzz, where we kind of post more about restaurants and things going on in the area. And we will see you next week.
Yep, we'll see y'all next time.